Hello, good afternoon. We are in the midst of a very critical election campaign. The choices between the two main political parties, manifestos and our economic programs, could not be in more stark terms. For the Democratic Labour Party, of course, who has been in office for the past 10 years, ours has been a task to manage Barbados' economy in a most difficult and critical period, one that has seen value lost across several economies in the world. Indeed, right here in the Caribbean, several of our colleague countries have lost their economic value relative to GDP output, employment, the earning of foreign exchange, and other critical variables that define our small, vulnerable and very open economies. Indeed, one would be hard-pressed to find any economy in the Caribbean over the last 10 years that has had consistently high rates of growth. Many of us have fluctuated between negative growth and very small, moderate levels of growth. Others who have had peaks have fallen into negative territory, and others still have basically been almost treading water with very low rates of growth. And this is because the fallout from that very terrible financial crisis of 2007-8 is still having debilitating impacts on many of our economies with sensitive variables such as your foreign reserves. In 2010, Barbados not only took a fiscal hit by the loss of over $200 million in revenue from the offshore sector, as well as a decline in tourism earnings, but we also lost foreign exchange because of it. And since these things are interlinked, it kind of feeds through to many other aspects of your economy. Well, picture this, if you will. In 2010, because of changes to the external laws in Canada by the federal government of Canada, our offshore sector lost anywhere between 200 and 300 million Barbados dollars, which is more than 100 million US dollars. And this was new money being injected into the economy rather than money that was already in the economy being circulated by various means, monetary and otherwise. If you were to add that up over a period of 7 years, say from 2010 to 2017, you're speaking at least of about 1.5 Barbados dollars. Now, there are not many countries in the world our size, with our type of economy, as vulnerable and open as it is, relying very heavily on foreign exchange earned from outside and foreign trade in terms of our commercial sectors, that can withstand a $1.4 billion drop in the amount of revenue that you have available to you, or on the other end, a 700 million US dollar loss in the amount of foreign exchange earned. So what was the response of the government? The government's response was first to go for stability on both ends, on the fiscal end and on the reserve end. It means that you have to take defensive measures, because in a state where first you're dealing with a recession that you're not sure if it is going to, or when it is going to bottom out, and secondly, the virulence of that recession, there's a likelihood that if you go with a more expansionary fiscal policy, as is being recommended, we realize today by the Barbados Labour Party in their manifesto, you risk damaging even further and to a greater extent that which has already been damaged by external factors. So we had to defend. We had to defend our dollar. We had to defend our social services. We had to defend our overall economic and social stability. That meant that we had to impose some tax measures and impositions, which frankly and honestly have not been the most comfortable to bear. Indeed, it has caused some discomfort to a number of Barbadians. But we always ask Barbadians this question: what would you prefer? Would you prefer to have a cessation of waste collection, or garbage collection as we call it, from the SSA? Would you prefer to have the entire cost of university education borne by the students rather than 20% as we currently have? Would you prefer that when you go to the hospital, patients have to be turned away from treatment because the hospital simply does not have the room, the beds, the medicine, or the personnel to treat them? When it comes down to these very basic questions and the choices which governments have to make, you look at the less of all the evils and you make the choice that is in the best interest of the country and the citizens, even though it may cause some level of hurt and discomfort for a period of time. And that is the course of action that the Democratic Labour Party chose. Now the question is, not so much now, as we are where we are, about what we have done, because we've seen a reduction in the deficit from averaging around 10% generally in the last 2-3 years. We've also seen new investments in tourism, in alternative energy, in the cultural industries, and other sectors as well. So we know that things that we have done have borne fruit. We still collect your garbage, perhaps albeit a little later than normal. We still run the best general hospital, offering a gamut of services not to be found anywhere else in the Caribbean. We still send our children to school free in primary, secondary, and to some extent tertiary level. We still have home care, home health treatment, and service for our elderly. We still take care of our disabled through the National Disabilities Unit. We still do all of these things in spite of the fact that we have had to take some tough decisions. In fact, I will say it is because we've taken those tough decisions that we continue to be able to do these things. So what do we need to do? The Democratic Labour Party's position has been very clear. If the deficit is a problem that we need to reduce by at least $200 million a year for the next foreseeable years, next 5 years or so, if foreign exchange is the critical variable and problem attached that we need to increase by $500 million in the next couple months to a year, then those are the ones that we tackle first and up front. We've proposed a comprehensive plan for dealing with both. Our record on deficit reduction is clear. From 11 to 4. We want to go from 4 as close to a balanced budget as is humanly possible. But how do we get there? We get there not by slashing all the taxes, increasing expenditure, or making unrealistic promises, like trying to raise non-contributory pensions to such a significantly ridiculous extent that it compromises the integrity and viability of our national insurance scheme. Not by trying to create 4 islands off Barbados, as the Barbados Labour Party is suggesting they intend to do, or even giving raincoats and boots to our gas station workers. These are all dressed pie in the sky, mellow, potpourri of things thrown at segments of the population. Immediate problem in earning foreign exchange or needing foreign and getting reserves. How do you get that? You don't get that with an IMF program, because truth is, if we were to agree to go to IMF right now, today, it takes no less than 8 months to negotiate and get through the IMF Executive Board an IMF program. And we all know what those programs are likely to contain. We don't have 8 months to wait. If we have to get the foreign exchange now to meet commitments both next month and later in the year, when the next set of payments are due, then we have to get the foreign exchange now. That is why the government said from last year we would move strategic assets by way of privatization to bring in a quick influx and injection of reserves that can allow us the breathing space and the elbow room to deal with those immediate concerns. Of course, at every turn the government has tried, these matters have found obstacles. Some legislative, others frankly political. We need to get serious in Barbados. If we sell the Hilton Hotel for 80, 90, or as is proposed, over $100 million, the buyer cannot take the Hilton Hotel with him or her in a suitcase out of Barbados. It will always be here. But we can get the value of that foreign exchange directly into our reserves. If we sell the Barbados National Terminal Company, it cannot be taken anywhere. It will always be in Barbados. But we can get the value of more than $100 million US immediately injected into the reserves. This gives us the stability we need for the next 6 months, 6 to 12 months, so that we can begin to work on some other alternatives, like getting the Hyatt and other critical investments going, getting earning the savings from foreign exchange by accelerating our investment in alternative energy, in boosting agribusiness, or saving foreign exchange by increasing the level of production in agriculture to cut down the food bill, which we are doing at present. We can also call on our business people to contribute more foreign exchange by bringing that which they have overseas invested, if necessary, through the second-tier reserves back into Barbados in the short term by way of lending to the central bank, so that a loan which the central bank is currently now negotiating with them can be provided to help us in that immediate regard. Once that platform is set, Barbados' tourism has begun to turn around in spectacular fashion. We now have the highest number of tourists we've ever had come into Barbados. The spend, according to the central bank and the statistical department, is up 2% over the year before. So therefore, we know that we're trending in the right direction. What we need now to do is to ensure that we unlock the benefits of other flows into the country by getting our doing business module and our ease of doing business in the right direction, in the right place, that foreign investors can feel confident that when they come to Barbados, they can get a return on their investment because the nimbleness, speed, and efficiency of doing business becomes a lot better than it is at present. That is what the Democratic Labour Party has committed itself relative to the foreign exchange. On the deficit side, once these assets are sold, of course, they give you an immediate injection into your revenue because they are public assets. Once they're sold, the foreign exchange is converted into Barbados. So that helps us in the short term, but those are only short-term things. What we need to do are more structural reforms. Now, how do we get that done? We get that done by looking at some strategic areas. Let's take health, for example. One of the largest budgets of government is the QEH. It takes anywhere between 150 and 180 million Barbados dollars to fund the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. That's just one part of the health system. But let's take that as an example. If Barbados is able to implement, as we are now drafting and putting in place, a national health scheme as proposed in the Democratic Labour Party's manifesto and the programs surrounding it, we will be able to cut the QH budget in terms of government's transfer to the QH, not to cut the amount of spending, but cut the amount of money central government gives to it by about $70 million, between $70 and $100 million. That should bring the deficit down between 3/4 of a percentage point and 1 percentage point. So if we are at 4%, you come down at least 1 more percentage point. So say we are at 3%. Good. Secondly, we said that we will do a debt reprofiling. We've already hired, through the central bank, a firm, New State Partners, who have been on the ground for the past 6 months looking at Barbados' entire debt stock and doing an analysis of which potential portfolios we can do business with in terms of your reprofiling. That report, completed and in draft, has been sent to me as Minister of Finance as a central. Once these elections are over, we will begin to engage our lenders and our creditors in a serious conversation about where strategically we can reprofile the debt in terms of extending maturities, that is, making the payment period a little longer on the debt, consolidating some debts, and also reducing some interest rates. Our anticipation is, if this can be done, and we are confident it can be done, it will save us another 70 to 100 million Barbados dollars. Albeit, GDP at around 8.5, 8.6 billion dollars, that becomes 1% roughly of GDP. It means, therefore, that you go from 3 to 2. Good. What else can we do? The sugar industry. We currently pay more than $50 million in debt to the BAMC to pay debts developed and incurred over many decades to service our sugar industry. that industry needs to be seriously restructured, reformed, and its financial situation significantly improved. If we can do this, and we are confident that we can, look at the debt relative to the one by PricewaterhouseCoopers, the other by CARTAT on behalf of the IMF through the Fiscal Affairs Department of the IMF. We've already started to implement aspects of that plan, with more still, including in the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan, that all of the social partners have endorsed and have said this is the blueprint that can turn Barbados' economy around. The savings identified by both studies indicate that we can get a maximum of $30 to $35 million in savings straight up without doing any significant dismantling of the social services in Barbados, if any dismantling at all. We believe that our partners will work with us in this regard because everybody realizes that, yes, we need to reform the health system, we need to reform the sanitation system, we need to reform the water system. These are things that can and will be done by the government of Barbados. So we're talking about another percentage point of the deficit. That gets us down from 2 to 1%. We believe that a deficit anywhere between 0 and 1% is imminently manageable by the government of Barbados. We believe it gives us enough buffer that if there are external or internal shocks, we should be able to handle it. But what will get us deficit reduction and even in surplus faster, better, and longer? Growth in the Barbados economy. Our manifesto is eminently superior to that of the Barbados Labour Parties. We focus on the industries that matter. Not just tourism and alternative business and international business, but alternative energy. We've laid a fundamentally sound groundwork through legislation, through policy, and through practical interventions in alternative energy, to the extent that we are now having in Barbados for the first time more than 25 megawatts of alternative energy produced. And our expectation is that we can move that up to 60, 70, 80 megawatts of power. Indeed, over the next 20 years, to make Barbados alternative energy compliant and reliant, and taking us off our reliance on fossil fuel-driven energy. These are exciting times for Barbadians. The cultural industries, we've passed the Cultural Industries Act. We've set up the Cultural Industries Foundation. We are working with our partners in this regard to get resources to allow our cultural industry practitioners to be able to expand and not only live in the Barbados market, but export their services to the Caribbean, to North America, to Europe, and to Asia and Africa as well. These are the policies that the Democratic Labour Party has identified that will drive growth in Barbados. Not just growth driven by consumption alone, which utilizes foreign exchange rather than earn. Activities that not only save foreign exchange, but earn more foreign exchange. Here's the plan, or here's the key. We can't do it alone. We need the people of Barbados who have been extremely helpful so far in this journey to stabilize our economy and bring it back to growth. People in Barbados have had to carry the brunt and burden of these adjustments. And we are thankful. I mean, nobody can say that Barbados have not stepped up to the plate. And we believe that now that we are beginning to see some light at the end of the tunnel, it is not time to take reckless decisions that will throw us back into a deep recession and probably even wreck the Barbados economy, but to stay steady with the Democratic Labour Party, to identify a responsible and mature program, and to hold our hands as we work together as Barbadians to solve these problems brick by brick, stick by stick, intent by intent, effort by effort. If we do this, I assure you, and I can ensure on you that Barbados will emerge better and stronger. But the question is, what choice are we going to make on May the 24th? A choice for maturity and sense, or a choice for frivolity and riskiness? We simply cannot risk the future of Barbados in relation to our economic policies. All economists who have seen the Barbados Labour Party manifesto, very few, if any at all, have endorsed it. There's a reason why that has happened. Because they cannot endorse that which is not endorsable, or that which is not responsible. But the Democratic Labour Party has once again proven that we can not only talk the talk, we can walk the walk. Because when you sit and you study and you study and you examine, re-examine, you tend to come up with more reasonable, achievable, and responsible proposals. And that is what we have done. So our record is clear. Our record is clear. We've kept public servants employed. We've kept the social services going. We've reduced our deficit as far down as we can get it, requiring now for major interventions on the structural side, which we've proposed in our manifesto and on our Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan. Our economy is growing again. Unemployment is coming down. This is the time for us to now go on after a slow and sticky wicket to begin to pile on the runs and ensure that we win the game for our children and our children's children. That is what is at stake in this election. And I urge all you Barbadians, all of you, to take a quiet moment and reflect on what I have said and reflect on what you've seen in this campaign. And I am sure that you will come up with the answer. That is the answer everyone is now saying after 2 weeks of campaigning. The bees are not ready. The Dems, we must stick with them. Thank you very much, and of course, may God bless.
5 years. And we would have seen that we've had medical education, we would have had cultural industries, and we would have had renewable energy. Now, what underpins all that growth is a robust and powerful digital platform. And that's what we are looking to deploy for Barbados. I think across the world, we would have seen that most of the major global players in terms of billion-dollar industries that have developed in the last 20 years have all been from a digital economy. From companies like Amazon to Facebook that we're using today, WhatsApp, etc. These are all software companies who've built applications, rather they're mobile-based apps or computer-based apps that have helped to fuel tremendous GDP growth and helped to build huge companies. And I just want you to think about the possibilities of both efficiency and foreign exchange earning potential if we get anything right in this space in Barbados, and that's what we're going to speak to today. ETA in particular. The internet is a tool that's used for almost every single thing that we do. So the first thing that we have to do in this country is to see what the impact is if we have a national broadband plan that gives us the opportunity to build out on top of the IT scale that we have. If we're able to do this right, it will mean that government will be able to make decisions in real time, that we'll have greater transparency with transactions as we do them. It'll also mean that we'll be more efficient. It'll mean that it's a workforce multiplier. I'm going to explain what that means as we go on to the other projects. And in particular, it will mean that we become an administration and a government that is able to interface almost constantly. And that's the way that we want to go. So when we talk about a national plan, the National Broadband Plan speaks to having Wi-Fi access in all public places. It speaks to the citizens being able to do every transaction that they want to do with their government online. And this includes bids, this includes any sort of application. And let us bring this home for a minute. If we look at the way that we handle international doing business, the productivity levels in Barbados have not increased since 1991. The reason that those public sector in particular productivity levels haven't increased is because we have not embraced technology in a manner that makes us more efficient and in a manner that makes us accountable. And let me give you an example. Let us say that you make an application for corporate registry for a new business. There are usually, there's usually a list of about 14 items that you need to provide in order to go through the registry process. Imagine being able to sit in your office anywhere in the world and submit all the relevant information online. And that information is then collated, authenticated, and given a particular registry note. It's like a unique code for every single document where it becomes an authentic document based on the government assessment. And you're able to process that entire transaction online and have your results back in one day. That is where we're going. We have everything in place as a country to be able to put these processes in place, and it's one of the things that we're going to do very quickly. Now, what is called an eGov platform. And persons will say that there's already an e-government office in the Ministry of Civil Service. And there's also the Barbados Statistical Department. What we're going to do, if you have these two agencies fused together, where they are able to provide a single portal for every single government transaction, everything from being able to say how many government employees at work, how many computers are in use, how many projects are in play, and the state of each one, and then information sharing across the entire government platform. where when you're doing, for instance, a housing project, the entities involved from the Ministry of Health to the Water Authority, to the Ministry of the Environment, to any other technical institute that needs to be involved, they're all on the same platform and seeing the same package. That is what we're looking at. So you're talking three things in particular. One, citizen ID, that's in a digital format, where you as a citizen are able to go onto the platforms and identify yourself and authenticate either on your mobile, on your laptop, or at the point of service delivery. Number two, we're talking about the digitization of documents. Every single document that we have, we'll do a digitization platform. And you would have heard Minister Lashley and Minister Jones speaking to this. So this whole ecosystem is connected. The digitization of documents means that every single legal document and every single transactional document is available immediately to whoever the authority is that requires it, and speeds the entire process up of offering services to the citizens. And this is critical. And the third part is authentication. For instance, there's a program that was written before for universities across the world, where on your university certificate, there is a little code with authentication. And you just need to scan that code, and no one has to verify or seek verification from the university that this is an authentic document. The software program does the authentication in terms of giving each document a unique identifier that cannot be replicated and cannot be in any way tarnished. With these three steps in place, then we have a platform to build on systems. And there are three projects that we're looking at initially to roll out. The first project is what we call a cadastral system. And this cadastral system basically looks at town planning operations. Town planning approvals right now are perhaps some of the most onerous processes that we have heard from citizens as we speak. So we're going to tackle this. And the process is where we have all of the land surveyed and entered into a digital map, which is on the platform. All of the information from corporate registry relating to that particular spot of land, all sequentially lined in a ledger-based platform. When you want to do a transaction to purchase a piece of land, or if you want to do a transaction to develop a piece of land, the process is the same. You enter your proposal online, submit it to the town planning department. All of the other entities have access to the information. Now, all of this is algorithm-based. There are rules that we have to construction or development or getting approvals. And as long as those rules are met, then the transaction is approved. The officers at the town planning will oversee it to make sure it's authentic. And in very short time, 7 days or less, which is our goal, you will be able to get approvals for any size project in Barbados from the town planning department. And this for us is a critical step. Our second project is going to be corporate registry. This speaks particularly to the ease of business doing index. We are going to look at all the items on that ease of doing business index, and we are going to shorten the process or automate the process with algorithm-based systems to make sure that Barbados is the #1 by the year 2026, the latest. That's our goal. And the third system speaks to safety and security on this island. We are going to put in place a 9/11 platform, which basically is a dedicated mobile network for the emergency services of this country. We are going to underpin this mobile network with aerial drones, ground vehicles, UGVs we call them. So in areas where we have a Coast Guard doing their maintenance on the coastlines to look out for vessels that may be doing things illegal. In cases where there's pretty larceny, it will help there. In cases where there are high-speed chase or search for vehicles or search for missing persons, aerial drones and UGVs will perform a significant service in being a workforce multiplier for a police force that is already short of its full manpower. The other thing that this will be able to do for us is that a single call to a single line and every single emergency service will be able to have access to the information in both voice, data, and video across a dedicated platform. So in terms of emergency systems, etc., there will never be overload. This is not for citizen use. This is an emergency platform only. And finally, the government, to support this infrastructure and to support this network and to support the movement of this process forward, has put in place a series of initiatives to help. Now, this ecosystem has to be fed by talent, because as we develop systems and programs and solutions and software, we need local talent who will. Our intent is to sell this IP globally. So we are going to create schools that are fit for the digital age. We're also going to promote the development of a digital society and the economy through the implementation of our that we will go forward with. There's going to be free access, free Wi-Fi access in public places. We're going to work through that. And then we're going to accelerate the depreciation of the cost on investment in corporate businesses. This will encourage businesses to technology in lifting the levels of productivity across the island. The government is also going to offer 150% rebate on corporate profits in terms of for companies who are investing in the ICT. Now, in terms of the expansion of investment in this area, we have investment agencies like the BIDC and Dlpbarbados who currently look at a lot of different areas, and we're going to have a strategic thrust for partnerships and investment for the ICT. In addition to that, we're going to implement a national broadband plan that looks to support the other major industries like healthcare and tourism and agriculture as we go forward, cultural industries and finance. These are all the items that we're looking at in order to build out a digital economy, using it first to make us more efficient, to make us more transparent, to make us more powerful, to give us a new economic line in terms of being able to sell these services in terms of IP and in terms of product globally. And in the end, when you have what the Minister of Finance put together, where we've stabilized the economy, we've built a platform that is now sustainable, we are now poised for growth. Now is not the time to make decisions that don't reflect or continue on this path. So we've built out economies that are doing very well. We now have a solid foundation. We're going to buttress that foundation with technology. That's going to make us more efficient. That'll make us in contact with citizens to drive productivity and make things less expensive, a lot more affordable, and more efficient for everyone. In a few days, we are going to have a general election. I think historically, there is no general election more significant in our history today other than the one we had in 1961. The Democratic Labour Party is not perfect by any standard. But I must say that everything that they have done within the last 10 years has been to clean up the quagmire that was left with the former administration and to ensure that public servants stay employed, that the economy does not further deteriorate, that the bedrock of that economy, which is our social services, are intact, and that we have now sacrificed so much and we are treats throwing mud on the wall to each and every sector to try to entice them with gifts, when those same gifts will take us back into the same cycle that we've been. It's time for us to stop going through that cycle and to look at disciplined fiscal processes that take us from strength to strength and make sure that every Barbadian can fulfill the dream. I urge you, continue supporting the Democrat Labour Party, stand strong, and on the 24th, do the thing. Thank you.